Well, if we're all ready, I am ready too. Maybe we'll get a few more stragglers either walking in the room or popping on a Zoom, but let's go ahead and get started for this evening. So, yes, we have, by my count, 43 images, including 8 critique only, which we will do at the end. And our topic this evening is ICM, intentional camera movement. And people in the club know that we had that great presentation from Stephanie Johnson. And if you paid attention to that and followed along, she gave you all the info and all the steps to do some great intentional camera movement images. And we do have some really great examples this evening. I hope you all enjoy them. The only quick announcements I'll make are on our program next month. Kyle Derlam, our very own Kyle, will be presenting on printing e-zines, books, booklets, and magazines easily and cheaply. I know some people in the club in the past have done their own books. I know Dan Greenberg has published a bunch of his car photos through Blurb. I know he's also done calendars, and I've seen him post on Facebook about his annual calendars. He's been doing those for, I think, about 8 or 10 years. So he's done a variety of things, and hopefully some other people have done so also. I myself, I played with a company called My Publisher way back in the day. I also gave Blurb a try, but I only produced a couple small 7x7 or 8x8 kind of, sharing books for family, stuff like that. And then our competition next month is going to be panoramas. So we're looking for at least a 16x9, hopefully a little bit wider. Maybe for any of you who have an X-Pan camera, you can shoot that format. Or some of the Fujis will shoot that, or excuse me, Hasselblads will shoot that. Fujis and other cameras, Canons, Nikons, they should also have 16x9 formats, or of course you just crop out of an image or do a multi-image stitch, whatever your heart desires. And I'd also like to say that on July 30th, we've got another Fifth Wednesday meeting. And at the moment, we don't have anything scheduled for that. So if you guys have any ideas, or if anybody in the club would like to volunteer to lead a local photo shoot or, do something downtown or somewhere close by, send your ideas my way. We'd love to get the club involved in a meetup somewhere and get together and shoot together. Do we have any guests in the room?
Nope.
All righty. And I don't see anybody here on Zoom either with us. We're chock full of members here. So the definition we had set for ICM was that just like it sounds, ICM involves moving the camera during a long-ish exposure to achieve a creative or artistic effect. Panning, moving up or down, twisting around lens axis, hitting your tripod legs, or whatever method you choose, we want to see the results. And before we started the meeting here, a couple of us were discussing how is the judge going to actually judge this stuff? Because it's so abstract, it's so different. Fortunately, our judge this evening, Greg Holden, has experience with these kind of things. And those of you who may remember back in 2022, he gave a presentation to us on abstracts. So he should do very well tonight judging our images. Greg is a photographer from Longmont, Colorado, who uses his photography to share with others how he sees the world. He enjoys creative photos of little scenes often overlooked by others rather than postcard landscapes. Although he won't pass by a chance to photograph a beautiful landscape or a tranquil sunset, he'd rather be exploring abandoned places and capturing the details of the layers of paint and rust on a discarded automobile. There's a few folks in the club who would join you with that, sir. Greg enjoys searching used bookstores for photo collections and has over 180 books, as I found out when I talked to him this past weekend.
I stopped on the way here at bookstore, tried to pick up a few more, but couldn't find any I liked.
Never miss an opportunity, right?
It was on the way.
I love it. I love it. He finds inspiration from master photographers in a wide range of subjects, such as the close-up beat studies of Minor White, the early portraiture of Steichen and Stieglitz, and street scenes by Andre Kertesz. He enjoys teaching others and sharing his passion for photography and speaks at camera clubs near his home in the greater Denver area, but also speaks and judges virtually to clubs across the U.S. And of course, you can find his work at imagesunderfoot.com. Greg, is there anything that you'd like to add to that or say about your judging style before we get kicked off here?
No, nothing particular. Really, I just kind of look for my the impact of the image is the most important to me. I can forego or forgive, maybe it is, some minor technical issues. But as long as the photo is interesting to look at, that's the primary importance to me. So anyway, we got a good variety of photos. So I got a chance to look at them ahead of time. So yeah, let's just get into it and let's go through.
Very good. All right. Looks like Bob is going to be doing our Lightroom presentation this evening. So if you're ready, sir, so am I. Yeah, what we'll do is Bob will display them up on a screen. Obviously, we'll see them through Zoom also.
Yep.
And then, yeah, I'll read the title, and then we'll go to you for your commentary and your scoring. Once we acquire 6 or 8 scores of a 9 or a 10, we'll pause for a bit and take each of those images and talk to the maker of the image and get their input on how they created it and everything. All right, this first image is titled Gas Pump Ghosts.
Yeah, so this one, it's interesting to look at. I'm not getting the ICM as much from this image as some of the other ones we'll see. And it's it's interesting. It looked like they did like some sort of motion to capture all this kind of rust and texture to form a background, and then superimposed sharp images of the gas pumps in front, which is interesting. I think it's an interesting picture. To me, it's not as ICM-ish, I guess, as the other images we'll see tonight, where everything's blurred and streaked. So it's almost like you applied a texture background to the image, and I'm not really getting the ICM and that kind of looking of that streaking or twisting or twirling. I'm just not getting that as much from this image. It's still an interesting image, but in this category, I'm not quite sure it fits the bill. So I would give this one a 7.
Let's go to school.
Sorry, I forgot the titles. Yeah, so this one too, it's unfortunate we have these two back to back. So we're definitely seeing some motion here. We're seeing some streaking as a bus is rolling along. I guess I would call this one a long exposure, but not really ICM, because I'm not seeing that intentional camera movement. I'm seeing intentional bus movement as we're holding the camera steady, because the driver and the inside of the bus are pretty sharp. And I'm guessing your hand holding it, the driver's maybe move it a little bit. You see a little blur in his arms. So we're seeing some really nice streaking in the bus and the trees and stuff there on the left, and a little bit on the right, looking out the front window. But that's really from the camera moving along with the bus, not necessarily the photographer doing the work of moving or jiggling or twisting the camera. So an interesting photo, but to me, the most interesting parts are that bus and that scene. And if you look at how much real estate that takes up, that only takes up about 1/3 of the image frame. 2/3 of the image frame are the interior of the bus, which is really static and kind of low contrast. So it's not as pleasing to look at as the outside. I wish I could just like take 2 steps forward to just look out the front of the bus. So I think this one's kind of a miss. I think it's a neat idea, but I'm not getting the ICM out of this one. So we'll give this one a 7 as well.
I'm sorry. The Color of Jazz.
So this one is more, I think, what we're looking for tonight with intentional camera movement, where we see perhaps a room or something like that. It looks like maybe that's a window up there in the corner. But we got all kinds of different colors and stuff going on here, and movements like a swipe and maybe a little twist or jiggle. So I think this is more in line with the ICM that we're looking for. With this one, I stared at this one for a while when I was previewing the images last night, debating whether those white streaks on the right add to or take away from the image. The two kind of little tendrils sticking out there, and then the little lasso there in the upper right. And then if we move the zoom thing out of the way, you'd see another little bright tendril. Those are interesting, but I don't think they really jive with the rest of the photo. I really like the blue streak on the bottom center, and it kind of marries well with the blue in the top left and the blue streak right above it. And so I kind of found myself taking if you take your hand and kind of cover the right half of the image and cover up those little streaks, to me, that's a more cohesive image. I don't think those little photo bombers coming in from the right really add to your image. And they're so different. They're so much brighter, different color palette than the rest of the image. So I find that they're distracting. Also on the right side of the image, we see a lot of sensor dust. Could be on your lens, but it's more likely on your sensor. So you see those dark spots right below the lower tendril, and then another one below the center tendril there. So get your sensor cleaned or do it yourself. It's really not that hard, and it's scary the very first time you do it because you think you're going to damage your $1,000 camera. But if you use the right tools, it's real simple. Just take your time. So this one, I think if it cropped better, it would be a stronger image, but it's got a lot of good aspects to it. So I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay, so this is Even Moss Can Waltz.
So this was really nice. This is a good, ICM. If you look at people who do it, there's 10,000 different approaches to it. So we saw the one before it was everything's just a total blur. You can't truly make out anything. And this one's a good blend of some stuff is a little static, so you can kind of get a little sense of what it is, but then a lot of it is really blurred. And so it's really your preference how you choose to do your image. So this is just a nice example of that blending of somewhat static parts and then somewhat blurry parts. So this one's really nice. I like the little red tips there. Having the lighter background behind these little things allows them to really jump out. Had it been a darker background or more greenery, those little red tips would all be kind of lost in that. So so good seeing for your composition. And I like this motion. It's kind of like a little twist or wiggle. So again, yeah, lots of different ways to do ICM. So this one's really a nice example. I'll give this one a 9.
Bad Case of Vertigo.
So this one's really nice. So here's yet a different approach to the ICM where we're twisting the camera, and you really have to have a good steady hand to get a good kind of rocking, twisting motion. It looks like this person did really well with that. I know when I try it, I don't get it as nice a swirl as this one. What I like about this one is the swirl is slightly off center. It's putting that person not dead center in the middle of the swirl, which I kind of like for this. I think had he been dead center bullseyed, maybe it would violate photography rule 1.0 that says don't put your subject in the middle. So I like he's like slightly off center of the dead center of the swirl. But this one's really nice here. We can see the swirl pattern. We got all these kind of light spots leading us up to the man there on the bridge. And then the greenery looks really nice swirled. So this one's a really great example of the twist motion of an ICM. Give this one a 10.
Denver at Light Speed.
Yeah, so I was looking at this one, trying to figure out what it was, and I kind of see like a plane maybe there on the right and then the left. So maybe you're looking out your window at takeoff or something like that. But really nice. This is kind of like the earlier one we saw where it's just a swath of color. And when you do these ICMs, it's hit or miss as to, depends on your pan speed and your shutter speed, a lot of different factors. And a lot of times, especially in a situation like this, you probably only have a few chances to get it before the scene changes. So really good result here. I was going to say composition, and you can only compose so much. You kind of see the elements out there, you see the colors, but you don't quite know exactly what it's going to look like until you click the shutter and the shutter completes. So this one's really nice with that bluish pink swipe coming through the middle, surrounded by the greenery, and then we got some mimicking of the same colors in the upper left and the upper right, and then the little spots in the bottom. Really balances the image out really well. I wish there was maybe a little bit more streak in that yellow stripe thing in the top center, but maybe it was much shorter to begin with, and maybe that is already quite streaked. That's the one element of the photo that doesn't 100% fit because it's just a little sharper than the rest. But overall, this one's really nice. I like the pano crop. You can re-enter this one next month for your pano competition. You're all set. You get double credit. You got 2 competition topics in one. So I really like this one overall, and I give this one a 10 as well.
When the blooms go boom.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure exactly how this one was done. It was not a zoom, it was like a swipe. Anyway, so this one kind of kept me guessing a little bit exactly what motion the photographer was doing, because we got swipes going right and swipes going left and then some going up. So I don't know if it's multiple exposures or multiple swipes. Anyway, very creative. The only thing about this one is that the center bloom there is right kind of dead center, which normally isn't always a problem. But I don't like that so much of the good stuff, the really streaked blooms there in the upper right, are just running off the page. And it's at the compromise of I'm getting more greenery and stuff in the bottom half. It's actually almost the bottom third of the image. And I'd much rather have to see more of the blooms, the red streaks at the top, than I would the greenery at the bottom, even though it's interesting looking with the little highlights on the leaves. So I think the composition is off on this one. I would have gone a little wider so we can see just a little bit more of the image. But overall, it's a nice one. Give it an 8.
Neon Vortex.
This one's, I like this because we got this almost full circle here in the bottom with the orange, but then we have the kind of partial segments of a circle with the blue streaks as kind of interesting, kind of forming that diagonal line running through the image, which is really nice. I like the bottom left corner where we have just a little hint of purple balances out the other parts of the image we're seeing, and it just kind of fills that corner. I wish there was a little color in the upper right, and perhaps whatever fair or wherever you're at, that's just the black night sky. So I'm not sure there's much you can do about it. I thought about you could crop in, but then you really kind of cut into those wonderful blue streaks. So not sure if in your file there's any light or anything to pull out of the shadows in the upper right. If there is, I try to do that just to balance it a little bit so it's not kind of a jet black void pulling me up there. But overall, this one's really nice and good job with your motion, getting nice curvature to all your streaks. We'll give this one a 9.
Magical Forest.
So this is kind of your classical ICM. You find some nice trees like aspens here, and you just do an up and down vertical pan swipe. It's kind of like the first type of swipe people learn how to do. It's pretty straightforward. But this one's really nice. And with this, kind of like some of the other ones we've been talking about, it's really about balance. So you got to find a scene where the trees are spaced out nicely to start with, and there's good balance. And then you do your swipe, everything will look nicely kind of proportioned. You do notice that the trees in the center are very white and stark, and that's fine. And then even the trees on the left have some good, nice highlights to them. We're losing a little bit of the highlight on the trees on the right, and to me, that throws the balance off just a little bit. I think it's easy to recover. I would just, if you're in Lightroom, you can mask off or use some sort of linear gradient or something, and then bring up the whites on that right third of the image just to balance it out a little bit better. But overall, it's really nice and really good technique, kind of go up and down so we get those tree trunks pretty, held together, and then we're just streaking the leaves and the foliage. So we'll give this one a 9.
Pop-out windows.
So this one, I didn't really get this one. I mean, it's interesting. These windows popping out from the wall. It's just not your typical ICM. Kind of like we were talking about with the bus. That so much of the image is static with the brick wall and then this big black void at the upper left. So when you have really bright parts of the image will draw your attention, which the windows do, but then that big black void taking up 35% of your real estate over there also draws my attention away, and I get sucked up there because I see the windows, and then my eye shoots up the left corner and then gets lost in the void. So I think the composition's off on this one. I'm not quite understanding how this ICM was done, where we have the wall perfectly sharp and these windows pop out, or just multiple images placed together. So to me, it's an interesting image. I think it's got some interesting aspects to it, but I'm not sure it all comes together. Just a lot of kind of drab brick wall, and then the big black void really kind of pull my attention away from those windows. Are really interesting. And I know you're trying to do 3 of them, so you have the rule of odds and stuff like that, but I just think there's a lot of other things that distract me from the good parts of the image, those window shadows. So I'm going to give this one a 7. It's interesting technique, but work it a little bit more.
Compliments.
I really like the colors on this one. This really bright orange we're getting here at the bottom, almost like fire, and then these streaks coming out the top. So kind of like I was talking about with the trees, you do something like this, you want to have some balance. And if we count our white streaks, we count 4 of them essentially. And then we have even numbers, usually prefer odds. Again, it's a guideline, it's not a hard, fast rule. But for me, there's a lot of dead space on the right, more so than on the left. So I feel like I need like one more white streak there on the right side of the frame, either that or crop in a little bit. And then we have this other horizontal rectangle at the top, kind of in the background. That was just some other aspect that's there. And it kind of just ends abruptly at the white streak on the left. So the composition of this one is not coming together. Although I love the colors, I think the technique is really good. It's just some of these subtle little pieces, just not bringing it all together like I'd probably prefer. But overall, it's a good approach, good technique. Just maybe work the composition a little bit better. And with these, for those that haven't tried this before, I'll do something like this. I'll do 30 or 40 of one subject, and I'll get maybe one I'm happy with. So it is a lot of trial and error. But we'll give this one an 8.
Aspen Serenity.
Yeah, so kind of different approach to the classic aspen trees, where we're in a little tighter here. So here the grove of trees is a little more cluttered together. So not quite as appealing as the image we saw earlier. But this one's got a little bit more of a wiggle to it, and not just a straight up and down. So we get kind of more of a shadowy effect on the aspen. So it's just a different type of look for the ICM. Again, there's really no right or wrong. It's just how you prefer. But I like what's done with the grasses here in the foreground. This look really nice, and little hints of orange there in that. But to me, the image is a little too busy, so I get kind of a little lost in it. I tried in my mind kind of cropping different pieces of it. Maybe that would make it somehow different. I think for me, it's just the strand of trees. It's just a little too many. So we'll give this one. We'll give it 7.5. We'll round up and we'll give it an 8 because I think good technique. I think just the subject's not the best subject.
Service suspended.
So this one, it's nice. We've been seeing all these nature ones and then now someone's doing some architecture. This is one where I don't think there's quite enough ICM because it looks, it comes across very blurry. I'm like, what am I looking at? I'm not immediately struck by this is an intentional. They're streaking up and down. And yes, we're seeing some streaking in the logo there and the green sign on the right and the things in the window. But we got a lot of dead space at the top. And I don't know that adds the image because there's nothing really up there for me to appreciate. So I think this one you just need to streak a little further, maybe just a little bit more up and down motion, so you get a little bit more haloing around the building. So it really looks intentional. So I think there's just a bunch of things not quite right with this one. I'll give it a 7.
My day at the beach is a blur.
So this one, again, nice colors. I like the blend and this, wave crashing here. This white streak going diagonally across the frame is nice. I like the balance of the sand here in the lower right with the dark blues we're seeing in the top left. I think the one thing for me that's distracting is that horizontal band at the very top, which I don't know if it's another wave or something like that. It doesn't go with the rest of the photo. The flow of the bottom 80% of the photo is diagonal and this kind of swiping diagonal. And we see a little bit of that diagonal swipe in that band at the top, but it's not as prominent. And so to me, it's like an anchor kind of pulling me there. It's like the image is upside down because it's an anchor. And so if you kind of take your hand and crop that out, I think that's a much stronger, more balanced image. I don't think you need that light blue band at the top. It's pretty colors with the little streaks of white in it. But I think with that jet black line at the bottom of it cutting into the image, I don't think that's doing you any favors. But if you crop that out, you take your 2 fingers, so I'm doing this in the room, take your 2 fingers and hold that up. I think that's a much stronger image without that band. So easy crop to fix. But overall, nice, and we'll give this one a 9. Crop it out and it'll be a 10.
Blowing in the wind.
This is kind of like the one we saw earlier. It's a good mix of motion, but also some sort of static things, so you can kind of see what's going on here. Really gives this kind of dreamy feel, like you just woke up from a nap and things are still coming into focus. It's a little dreary, and that's maybe how it was. Overcast sky there. So I think when you're doing this kind of work, it's okay to play on your computer and pump up your saturation or your vibrancy or even your exposure a little bit. I think that would just help make this a little bit more artistic instead of just a foggy brain waking up from a nap. And so I think that would help elevate the picture. I like these reeds on the left and the nice curve of that sand bank that it forms there on the left. I don't think you need as much that you have on the right. The right, like 35% of the image just kind of dissolves into a little bit of grasses. We got some nice green in the background from whatever the waves or water is back there, and that's kind of pleasing. But I think I'd cut off maybe 10% of the right. I think that would just balance it out a little bit better. I don't think you need so much dead space there on the right. That would still preserve a good bit of that green tint on the horizon in the background, which is kind of nice. And then if you amp up your colors or your saturation a little bit, I think that would just make this a little bit more punchy and just a little bit more pleasing to look at. So we'll give this one an 8, but I think with a few little edits, you can really elevate it.
The land of leafy dreams.
So it's kind of interesting. I trying to figure out whether this is kind of a wiggle effect on the camera. It almost looks like multiple exposures kind of stacking images that are somewhat spaced apart. So it kind of has that feel to it. But this is kind of interesting. You kind of look at it at a quick glance and this looks like a regular photo. But as you study, it's like, wait a minute, why is everything kind of out of focus? And why are there multiples of things? And like, why can I kind of see through the palm tree here on the left? So that's kind of interesting, where on first blush, it's just a simple image. And then as I look into it further, I start to see some of these other elements, which is always nice. That allows me to really then want to study and dig into the image. The exposure is really nice. A lot of times with these long exposures, we have a lot of exposure challenges. But this one's really balanced out really nicely. Really nice colors and kind of a little path on the left kind of leads me into the image. So there's a lot to look at this one. I wish we had a little bit more space on the left, just because that one trunk of that palm tree is pretty fat, pretty heavy visual element. So I wish it had a little bit more breathing room on the left. just kind of lead into the image a bit. But overall, really nice. Give this one a 9.
Union Station. And after this one, we'll pause and talk to the people who got 9s and 10s so far.
So interesting, coming back to architecture. So this is a good, contrast to the building we saw before. And so this is a good, where we see this zoom effect now you can still see the building, still see the train there at the bottom, still make out what it is, but we have some very, very prominent streaking. So it doesn't just look like a blur, it looks like very intentional artistic effect. So it looks really nice. I'm not sure you need quite all the dead space you have there on the left of the underhang of the roof there. I think you could get away with a little bit less of that. I maybe cut that in half, because I think the most interesting parts of the streaks on the trains here in the bottom center, and then of course the Union Station sign in the top center, and then all the nice colors of the sky. So I think that having so much of that dark shaded roof area just pulls me away from the good stuff to this kind of black void that I don't want to go linger on. So I'd crop off a good chunk of that left side, and then you have just a nice kind of curve swooping into the image, into all the bright spots, and that would be a nice lead in then. With so much fatness there, I don't get as much of that lead in from that curve. So if you take that away, it really emphasizes that curve coming in, and so I think that'd be a better balance. So more of a 4x5 crop on this one instead of the 4x6 it currently is. But overall, this one's got some really good aspects to it. We'll give it round up and give it a 9.
All right, so this is Even Moss Can Waltz by Joy Lindholm.
Hi, yeah, thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I was trying a bunch of different techniques with ICM and couldn't really settle on one that I really felt confident about, and decided Saturday morning before the deadline to enter that I would go out to my patio and with my macro lens and shoot some of the moss that are on there. And these are the little sporophytes, the little reproductive stalks that are sent out. And playing with, with macro, you have like very subtle movements kind of make a big difference. So playing with a few things, it reminded me of dancing. So that's what I ended up with the title for. But yeah, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's a really nice image, Joy. But we've got to get maybe I got to change all the topics for the year. We got to get you out of your yard.
I was going to say, if Todd's listening, he gives me crap for that, but there's so many beautiful things to shoot.
Exactly. And you're successful with it too. So never mind. Keep on doing what you're doing. Bad Case of Vertigo. This is from Gwen Patton.
Yeah, I took that about a month ago in North Carolina, and that's my friend Bill on the bridge. And luckily he had brightly colored clothes on. And I purposely cropped it so he wouldn't be in the middle. And I also cropped it on the bottom to make it not so centered. And I probably took it at 1/30th of a second. I usually start at 1/30th. But we were just practicing. I probably took a dozen shots to get this.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. I'm kind of surprised that a 30th gave you that much swirl.
Well, I'm just guessing. I usually start there and then go down from there,
Right.
but I can't be sure what it was. And if you look real close, there's someone else in the background there with the red shirt on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can barely see him right there. Yep.
Yeah, right.
Very nice, Gwen.
Thank you.
Denver at Light Speed is from Stuart Little.
Yeah, this was, I took this downtown, looking at the I-25. It was near sunset, so it was a little darker, and I just followed the cars on the freeway there.
Oh, they're cars. I just saw like little dots look like windows on an airplane.
Yeah. Well, the yellow up above is part of some structure. I can't remember what, but I think that's an underpass or an overpass on the left. So, yeah.
Nice.
Nice colors.
Very nice.
Yeah.
As Greg was talking about that image, I'm looking, it's like, oh, wait a minute, those look like cars.
Yeah.
The darker spots towards the middle there. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
very nice. Did you enhance the colors or did you get that
Yeah.
naturally because of time of day?
I did enhance the colors. I was using Lightroom with
Vibrant.
Topaz.
Topaz, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Nice image.
All right, thank you.
The vase there or whatever.
Neon Vortex. This is from Gary Witt.
This was taken at the Denver Botanic Gardens during Christmas time.
Oh, lights, okay.
And, trying to get you, I was on a tripod, so the tripod collar on my lens, I loosened up so I could just rotate it inside the ring because I wanted a more exacting sort of streak of lights. That black spot you talked about, Greg, had a bunch of white lights in the shape of Christmas. This has been turned vertical. It was shot horizontal.
Okay.
And I liked the circle in the bottom right, then in the upper right where it was as a landscape. So, and then you had these bright lights kind of in the outline of Christmas trees up there above those purple spikes. And I hated that. I didn't want it to be thought of as a Christmas image.
Sure.
So I got rid of all of them, but I obviously got rid of everything else too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I worked hard to kind of use some dodging and burning to kind of bring your eye from the upper left towards that black circle. Because it was kind of all uniform brightness, and I tried to dodge down some things to make it your eye not want to leave the bullseye.
Yeah, it's a nice flow to it.
That's nice. It was a good choice to turn that to a vertical too.
I think that was about 6 seconds, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. Magical Forest is from Oz Fenninger.
Yeah, I took this a couple years ago during obviously the fall color time. Just a vertical movement. I did put a vignette on this, and so maybe that was not quite the right thing to do in terms of losing some or brightness on the right side. And I lightened up some of the yellow colors more towards the left and towards the left. I didn't want everything to be dead center in terms of intensity. So anyway, just a simple up and down motion.
Nice.
A great result too. My Day at the Beach is a Blur from Brian Donovan.
Yeah, there's a couple dust spots.
Sorry.
In the window there.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Is there any description, Bob?
There is no description, no. And I see Brian's on Zoom, but he may have stepped away.
Oh, tell him clean his lens or clean his
His sensor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can spot it out.
Yeah.
I mean, in Lightroom, there'd be easy spots to clean up.
Right. I know there's a technique there's an option in there now. There used to be a technique to change the contrast and use the Alt key and move a slide or something or other. I can't remember. I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, in Lightroom, you can show under the spot tool, you can say show spots and it'll create a black and white high contrast image. You can change the intensity, opacity of that to help really see where your spots are. So if your eyes are starting to fail you, as mine are, the older I get, the less sharp they are. That's helpful to see some fine spots.
Moving the image can also help you see the spots.
Yeah, because they don't move, they stay there. Sometimes it's just spots on my screen. I just gotta clean my screen too.
I've experienced that too. All right, let's continue on. The Land of Leafy Dreams is from Susan Hafke. And I don't believe that she's on Zoom. She did leave a note here that this was taken in the Fern Garden at Blarney Castle. I tried a new app called Reheld for long exposures on my iPhone. It was a 1 second exposure with movement horizontally.
Okay.
Interesting what you can do with an iPhone and a cool app.
Yeah.
And Union Station is from Ben Hernandez.
Hey Greg, thanks. So I'm sitting here in front of my computer and I'm like, okay, I gotta try this. And I gotta say I cropped it 1:1. I also have a black and white version. And well, the color one, the black and white looks great 1:1, but good points. I am looking at it and maybe it will grow on me.
All right. It's just one opinion.
No, and I do appreciate it. As I said, I'm looking at it. It looks great. I totally see what you're saying. I think it has nothing to do with what you're saying, because you're right on point. I think it's more of a personal preference kind of thing, but not to take away from what you said, because as I said, it's extremely accurate. I'm looking at it and it looks great. So thank you.
All right.
There you go. Sometimes just a little tweak makes all the difference. All right, let's get back to the show. And this would be crow-rousing.
Yeah, from the title, it's I guess those are like birds there in the lower part. And had they been completely black, it would have been kind of a void like we talked in some of the other photos. But there's some nice streaking going through those, so it balances them out well, and then they kind of stand out against the background of these reeds or whatever with a lot of highlights. So really kind of interesting image here with this. I guess it's a left to right swipe to get that streaking. It's interesting. Yeah, so I like this one. We'll give this one a 9. I think I just cropping maybe could be a little different. Not exactly sure how though.
Yeehaw.
So here we've been talking about ICM and blurring the image. Here's, I guess it does fall in the ICM category, but I see this more as a panning technique, where you're panning, moving the camera at the pace of the rider and the calf there, so they're sharp and everything else is blurred out in the background. So to me, I don't necessarily consider that ICM. It's the same kind of technique, but it's a different effect. Obviously, we're trying to keep the subject sharp and everything else blurred, versus ICM. Typically, everything is blurred.
Excuse me, Greg, just to clarify, in our competition definition, panning was one of the techniques that we were looking for.
Okay.
So obviously there are other ways to do ICM, like you mentioned. There are many different ways to do it, but in our particular definition for this month, panning was one of the suggestions.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Sure.
But yeah, regardless, it's a really well done photo. If you've ever tried this type of technique, it is very difficult to match the pace of the rider and keep your camera straight. If you're on a tripod, that does help. But a lot of times you're at these like rodeo events, you don't necessarily allowed to have a tripod or monopod. But either way, you're really well done with the rider being nice and sharp. I like how we're getting a little bit of a triple image of the rope there going around the calf. So that's nice. It's a little tight on the left side. I wish the horse's tail wasn't kind of cropped off. I know the tail isn't the subject of the photo, but it just makes it feel just a little tight there. We got a nice bit of room there in the front, some breathing room for the calf to run into. So the overall composition is really nice. So really just to kind of nit on the cropping there on the left. But really well done job on this one. So we'll give this one a 10.
Round and round we go.
This one was a little worrisome to me, a little scary as to what this cement creature thing is on this merry-go-round with it's sort of tied to it, but kind of loosely. So it kind of kept me guessing as to what was going on here. So kind of interesting here where we're inside the twirly thing. So we're twirling that background, and then from our frame of reference, the ride and the creepy statue thing are staying static. For me, the issue is this big blue post here on the right, which I'm guessing is a center post that we're rotating about. So that having such a big, bold element like that just really draws my attention. Not to mention that it's sharp, right? I see the edges. So my eyes see a big shape and it's very sharp. And so my eyes say, oh, sharp, I must go check that out. Versus blurred, it's in the background. So my eye in this image kept getting pulled to the right. And then once I see the big blue pillar, I see the bright sky behind it, which is brighter than the rest of the sky on the left half of the image. So it's really unfortunate because the rest of the image is kind of interesting if you can get past the creepy statue thing with the really nice motion there in the background. And we got some nice colors kind of blending it all. But for me, I just kept getting pulled to the right with that big pillar. And then, of course, it's not totally vertical. So then my eye starts to the engineer in me wants to try to write that. So I get all confused hanging out there on the right side of the image when I really want to hang out on the left side of the image. So this one, some good ideas here. We'll give this one an 8.
All Souls Gate.
This one, I like this one. There's a lot of aspects to this one I like. I like that this is really blurred, right? We have tons of streaking. We've seen some other images where it's a little less streaked and you can kind of make out the things a little better. But this one, it really adds a kind of eerie feeling to it. Trying to figure out, it's called a gate or whatever, but it's like a portal. The killer for me is this lens dust, or sensor dust. And there's another image by the same maker, and later in the image, and I know it's the same because the sensor dust is exactly the same on that other image. So it's almost like a fingerprint. So clean your sensor or spot all that stuff out in Lightroom. But if you get past the sensor dust, which is really annoying, which is very unfortunate because the image is really interesting. You got this pan triangle kind of leading me to this portal thing here in the middle with kind of framed out with this white thing. And then it's kind of like an open can, basically opening to the sky. And I wish it was not. I wish the top little bit, again, we're putting up my fingers here, cut it off the top. So the top of the frame ends with those two black lines framing out the white square. And I think that makes it a little more interesting image because then it kind of completes that and makes it look like a portal, a squared off hole that I'm being led to and being sucked into or something like that. Having it open at the top, again, I am just interpreting this image how I am sensing what I'm getting out of it. But having it open at the top makes me feel like I can escape. So that's not as interesting to me as being trapped. Freud will say that's something about my personality. I like being trapped more than I like being freed. But that's for another topic. I think there's a little bit too much dead space on the right. You probably crop out a little bit of that, maybe crop out that black square on the left. So it's still be off center, but just not as much dead space. So I think a little cropping, some spotting of your sensor dust, and this would be a really, really interesting image. And I don't like nixing things on technicality, but that sensor dust is just really distracting on this image. So we're going to give this one an 8. It could have been a 10, but with those couple of things, it's just, I can't appreciate it as much.
Loud and Proud.
So this one, I'm not really feeling the ICM as much. It's really, to me, more of a soft focus. And perhaps, you jiggle the camera to give it that blurred look, but to me, it just looks like, just a soft focus kind of photo. It's very interesting with the colors. I like the balance that you've struck here with the oranges at the bottom and then radiating to these yellows and whites and purples on the top third. So your composition is really good. Again, I'm not just feeling the ICM as much as some of the other photos, but overall, it's really pleasing. So we'll give this one a 9.
Sunflower Meltdown.
So the title for this one's really good because when I saw it, does exactly what I thought. It's like someone painted a sunflower picture, then left their painting out in the sun. The paint just started drooping down and melting away. And so this is one where I think that the panning, it was not, we need to refine the technique a little bit more because it does look less artistic and more just like meltdown, like a disaster happening on someone's canvas. And then we get these bright white background because that sunflower is probably in total shadow. So trying to expose for that means the background gets totally blown out, which can work for some images. I think for me, just the streaking technique was not as good as it could have been. Maybe it's just a little bit of wiggle to it, not as straight. So we didn't get a little more fine streaks. So it's just not as pleasing to look at as some of the other streaky photos we've seen. We'll give this one a 7.
Autumn trees.
This one, streak technique is very interesting. This one, it kind of reminds me of a record. Like it kind of has that fine grain of a record on a record player, spinning round and round. So this one's a really nice balance of the different colors, these bright oranges from, I guess, what are aspens, and then the greens, and then we have some dark colors there. And we have this nice kind of sinusoidal wave kind of going through the middle with the different transitions between the different colors, which is really a nice addition. I don't think you need the blue in the background. Yes, it adds another color, but I don't think you need it. I kind of like the really abstractness of this one. And I'd more just crop out the blue so we don't see the tops of these trees. And then it's really just a full abstract. So I don't see that edge. I just don't think you need that much of it. I'd probably crop a little bit off the right too. We have quite a bit of dead space before we hit that first yellow blob there in the center bottom. So I'd take a hair off the right and a little bit off the top. And I think that it would box it in a little bit more and just make it a little bit more abstract. And I think that would be stronger overall. But it's a really nice image, and it's personal preference. I just don't think you need the blue. So since it's personal preference, we'll give this one a 10.
Please remember to keep your seatbelt safely fastened.
So this one, I think this one you could have gone a little bit longer on your exposure, so we get a little bit more motion going here. And we're seeing the one chair is really sharp there on the right. I feel like this one's not quite blurred enough. It's kind of like that building one we saw earlier this evening, where it's kind of the in between of, is it just a blurry image or were they trying to do something artistic? It's just not. It's an in between. It's not enough one way or the other. So I think you need just a little bit more motion here. The crop is also really tight. I'm not a big fan of the person's feet there in the lower left cropping off, as well as the person's coming right into a corner. Usually you don't want things coming straight out of a corner. Again, guideline, not a rule, but so you basically end up with a kind of diagonal. You could cut this image in half if you went corner to corner. And so that's maybe not as strong a composition as you could come up with. I think if you got a little bit wider, you'd show a little bit more of the sky, which looks like it has some good clouds in it, which would give you more of that blue-white kind of irregular colors, which would frame out this really dark merry-go-round a lot better. As it is just a little too tight in. So I think there's a number of issues with this one I'm not as a fan of. We're going to give this one a 6.
Crowded streets, faded faces.
So it's nice to see this people one in here, this kind of long exposure. And of course, having these people with the bright coats really sets them out from the rest of the crowds in them. The one thing that's a little weird for this one is this lady in the lower left with the purple. She's like facing the other way. So I don't know why this whole mass of crowds is headed to the right and she's turned around to the left. So kind of jarring. And it's just, since there's only 3 really recognizable heads, the 2 boys in the middle and then her, it's forming a triangle. And then so my eyes definitely want to go check her out. Of course, it's a bright pink or purple color there. surrounded by the darkness. So my eye wants to go over there, but I don't really want to go that way because all the action's going to the upper right. So it's kind of sending me in the wrong direction. So I don't think you need her. I think you could crop her out, go to a square crop on this one, and then we'd have a nice curve coming in from the lower right of that blue jackets into the red jacket, into the yellow and the red, and it'll kind of curve you right into the image. And that'll be a nice kind of flow to the image versus as it is now, I come in on the right and then I make a detour and hard left to the lower left corner. I really don't want to do that because the rest of the image is really interesting. So I think I'd crop this one differently. We'll give this one an 8.
Print to the goal.
All right, so another panning one. So again, another great example of panning at the speed of the riders. You can see the not necessarily all the same speed. So some are sharp and some are not as sharp, just because they're going different speeds. But sharp enough that we can kind of appreciate the action here and the gallop of the horses. So the framing on this one's really nice. Really wish that one extra rider, he's probably a judge or something, a referee. Wish he wasn't there in the background, but as it is, that's how it is. But it's nice. I like your proportions here, giving a good bit of the trees at the top to just kind of frame the sense of place, as well as give me a little bit of breathing room around all the action there at the bottom. So really well done on this one. I'll give this one a 10 as well.
Softail Harley.
So yeah, kind of very different approach here where we're using a couple different techniques, making this monochrome and then blackening out the background. So this one comes a lot more of a graphical, kind of image. It's kind of interesting. So here's a case where you're really blowing out the highlights on this chrome, but it works for this kind of image because it's not really about the motorcycle. It's just about the highlights and creating this kind of artistic effect. I think for this, I don't know if I need as much black space around it. It's interesting. We just followed the image before where I said, oh, I like the breathing room. I like how you added the trees. And I think for that image, you needed it. I think for this one, since it is more graphic in nature, that we don't necessarily need a lot of the black space, especially down at the bottom. So because what happens is we get the edge of the back end of the motorcycle here on the right is fully in the frame, but then we cut off the front part of the motorcycle. And so I'm kind of conflicted, like part of the motorcycle's in, part of it's out. It's kind of half the motorcycle's in, half's out. So I would, if you do something like this, I just go all in and crop in tight and just make it very graphic. So we crop off all the edges. So the adage of, crop like you mean it. So I come in and crop off a lot of that back, I guess, tailpipe or whatever it is there. I don't think you need that. I don't think you need all that black space. And then just stick to the wheel, the fender, and the kind of horizontal streaks in the left half of the image. I think that would be a stronger composition and a little bit more graphic than what we have here. But overall, it's an interesting approach. We'll give it an 8.
Low Plains.
So really nice colors on this one, really, really punchy, very vibrant. This one, we're kind of half and half. We got half reflection, half reeds. I'm not sure that's the best balance for this image. I like the reed. The reflection is very interesting, but I like the reeds way better. So I'd kind of give a little bit more weight to the reeds and a little less to the reflection. So I don't know if you cropped it in and you could give more space at the top, or just crop off the bottom, make it even more narrow pano. Kind of like some of the other images we've talked about. We have really nice dense collection of reeds here on the left with kind of alternating yellows and greens. And that looks nice. In this particular case, there is a lot there, but it works for this. And I think it's because those bits of green interwoven with the yellows and oranges allows that dense image to still look very interesting. But then we lose kind of the density there on the right, where the reeds get a little thinned out and it's just a lot of blue of the water. That's interesting, but I think it doesn't marry well with the other 85% of the image. So I'd almost crop that out and just have the image more uniform And I think that would be better balance. And then do something with the water, either crop out some of the water or give me a little more space above the reeds if you have it in the image. Clearly, this has been cropped into like a 16 by 10 or whatever. So maybe have some more room up top. Because I think the reeds are where the action's at. The reflection, supporting character, but doesn't deserve 50% of the real estate. So a couple issues with this one, we'll give it an 8.
Crabapple tapestry.
This one really interesting. These little flurries, kind of these little zigzags we have going on here in the middle of the frame. I don't think you need that blown out white sky at the top. That is doing nothing for your image. It just draws my attention to the heavens, and then I'm trapped there in the white void. And there's nothing going on up there. So I don't think you need that at all. I would crop this to a very narrow pano and take off as much as that white as you could off the top. So we just have a bit of green at the bottom, and then this wonderful 2 humps of pink in the middle, and then all the wonderful zigzags of white in the middle. I think that's a more compelling image. And at home, I have my computer, I zoomed in a little bit, and you get some really nice detail on those little zigzags there, especially in the middle of the image. But you can't really appreciate them because there's so much real estate around and so much other stuff going on that my eye doesn't linger there very long and jumps to the bright white spot. So I think you crop down on this really tight, make this a really, really narrow pano. I think that's going to be way stronger image. But great technique with your little zigzaggy technique and good subject for it. Just a little work on the finished product. We'll give this one a 9 because it's got a lot of potential, I think.
I can't drive 55.
Yeah, so this one, I can see the artists like they want to include this road with the yellow stripe, yellow median there. It does add another element to the photo. To me, it's kind of distracting. The swirl going on with the trees is really, really nice. Got some interesting colors. It's really good technique in the swirl. I don't know if the blacktop pavement with the bright orange stripe it's really working for me. Yes, the orange complements the yellow oranges in the aspens in the top, but it's so bold, it's so sharp. My eye gets pulled down to there, and maybe it's the engineer in me wanting to follow the straight line. I seem to want to follow that line, and then it just takes me right out the page. So I don't think you need that. Unfortunately, there's really no way to crop it out without taking significant amounts off the good twirly stuff at the top. So this one, I think you just need to be able to zoom in a little closer. So we didn't have any of that road. I just don't think that's doing much for you. We'll give this one an 8.
Cheap oil painting.
Yeah, so clever idea with the title, and I could see why maybe the artist was thinking that, looking at this. I think like some of the other ones I've commented on, it's an in-between. It's just not quite streaky enough. It on first blush, it just looks like someone tripped the shutter accidentally and it's just blurry, or they kicked the tripod while they're taking the image. So it just doesn't look as intentional as some of the other photos where it's clear that someone is actively moving the camera to create an effect. Here it just looks again like someone kicked a tripod on a long exposure. So I'm just not getting the effect. There's some kind of interesting textures and formations going on in the water there, but there's just so much going on in the background that's just kind of a blur. It's just not as appealing. So I think this one's kind of a miss. We'll give this one. The composition's good. I think you just need to blur more. So we'll give it a 7.
Walking Among Us.
Yeah, neat idea for this one with these kind of ghostly figures here. I probably would have gone a little bit longer exposure so we get even more blur of the people, so they're even more faint and streaked. But it's definitely interesting. I definitely kind of get the feel of the walking among us like it's ghosts or something, ghost of beachcombers past or something going on here. So it's kind of nice. I don't think you need as much as the sky as you included. I'd take off maybe to the top of that dark cloud. I just don't think you need that much. It's really about the waves and the people down there at the bottom. That's the interesting part. Because with it, it's kind of like half sky, half interesting stuff. So just the sky is not as interesting. Plus there's a big old spot there in the upper left. That one's probably a lens spot. You see the big dark circle. So you, again, clone that out or clean your lens. And yeah, so I think a few different things you could do with this one, maybe make it a little stronger, but it's a good attempt. We'll give it an 8.
The Dancer.
So this one's really clever. We'll just give you the score first. This one's a 10. So I really like this one. It's got great motion, great blur here, and it's a bird, right? And it's turned sideways. And from first glance, it does look like, a ballerina up on point, with, her hand outstretched or whatever and doing some motion. So love your title. That was very apropos. So really clever to capture this and then flip it. We can debate about the amount of white space on the right. I was kind of playing with that on my computer at home, how much I liked it or not. I don't think you'd want to go too tight in this one just because it is such a bold person. I do like having some negative space for this one. So tomato, how much of the white space on the right you actually need. But overall, this was really, really well done. Just every aspect about it is really nice. So yeah, I set a 10 for this one.
And our final official image in the competition, we'll go for this one and then look at the 9s and 10s, and then we'll finish up with the critique onlys. This one is 250 points of light.
So yeah, a lot of nice elements going on to this one. We get these straight lines coming down, and then they're terminating in these little dots here at the bottom. My preference, I go tight all the time. My wife keeps buying me wide angle lenses and saying, Greg, you gotta go wider. So personal preference for me, I don't think you need as much, I don't think I need 2/3 of the image of the streaking lights at the top. I think a little bit of the streaking lights coming to the wiggle and then coming to the termination points at the bottom is the most interesting part for me. Personal preference, I would crop this to a 4x5. So I crop off, 20% or so of the top there, maybe come in a little tighter on the sides. I don't really like these little they're yellow zigzags all by themselves. It's almost like I'm taking a picture of a girl with beautiful, colorful hair, and she's got a couple stray hairs on the side. I just want to clone out. So I kind of feel like I want to come in tighter. So I think that's just me, the tightness. I think overall it's nice. I still think you got a little bit too much negative space in the upper right. You can debate on that one, I guess. But overall, it's very interesting, whatever lights it was that you created here. So we'll give this one a 9.
Interesting title from Terry Hanford, Crow Rousing.
This was actually taken from my car. And I was stopped. I stopped to take this picture, but there were 3 or 4 crows just running through the grass, and I was sweeping left and right, and so it was hard the crows were not going in straight lines, so it was hard to, center them or put them exactly where I wanted them. But I just liked the picture so much. I decided to submit it. Sometimes things aren't the perfect composition, but you just love the picture anyway. And I took the green out of the grass because I found that distracting. So I thought that made it a stronger graphic picture. Thank you for your comments.
Yeehaw, this is from Bill Rothenmeyer. And it appears that Bill is not here this evening, unfortunately. The only note that he said this was taken at Cody, Wyoming Rodeo. Loud and Proud. This is from Joy Lindholm.
Yeah, so I took this at the same time I took the other image. There's a couple of violas had popped up in the cracks in our patio, and tried a little bit different technique with this one. I actually have a macro lens that goes up to 5 times. And this is shot between like 2 or 3, I can't quite recall, but I played with getting the image in focus and then doing kind of a high-speed continuous shutter while moving the camera. So I ended up with about 20 or 30 images, and this is the one that I thought the composition was the most interesting. So that's that. Thanks again, Greg.
It's an interesting technique too. Autumn Trees is from Stuart Little.
Yeah, this was taken a couple of years ago, not long after I first moved here, and I think it was on the Lariat Loop Road. And I did just like the typical up and down movement for the camera movement. And yeah, I thought it turned out pretty well. You're right about cropping off the top there a little bit more. I like that suggestion. I think I'll take that into account. Thanks for your suggestions on that.
Thank you, Stuart. Sprint to the Goal is from Oz Fenninger.
Yeah, I took this in Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia. You were right, the person in the background is one of the judge or the judge. This is a game they were demonstrating where they have the body of a goat. And the goal is to grab the goat off the ground and toss it into a ring at either end, depending on if you're red or green. And so, yeah, I just panned, and that was the result. So yeah, I wasn't sure if it was going to really meet the criteria of the subject matter for the category. But anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Oz. Crabapple Tapestry is from Erin Alfinger.
Yeah, I just candidly was watching Stephanie's like video on ICM on the YouTube channel, and I thought, where can I find something that I can get a lot of texture from? And there are these trees over at a park by my house that I really admire, and they have a lot of just sort of depth to them. They're like really tight when they aren't fully bloomed, but when they're fully bloomed out, they're much larger, which gives kind of a variation in the texture and in the color. And I wanted to play around a little bit with a neutral density filter so I could get the exposure longer to incorporate a little bit more of a wiggle there. And that plus the cloudy day gave me just enough time to be able to keep the colors and incorporate my wiggles.
Well, that's a great result, Erin. Fantastic.
Thank you.
And the other one from Terry Hanford, The Dancer.
Yeah, this is a pelican, and I was just trying this technique out, and a lot of different speeds. And like Oz, I wasn't sure in the end if this one actually met the criteria. It is panning against a very gray sky, which made it seem like there was nothing there at all. But there's a little bit of panning blur in it. But I just liked the figure so much, particularly flip this direction. And I did a little bit of dodging and burning because it looked to me sort of like it had a hand coming down, even though it obviously it did not. And anyway, thank you. It was a fun shot, and I'm glad I could share it with you.
Thanks, Terry. And that's a good note for everybody. You know, sometimes rotating an image or flipping upside down, you know, there's a technique that's talked about a lot for years and years, that you turn your image upside down to check your composition, because if it makes sense upside down, it also makes sense right side up. But even just rotating 90 degrees, you can get something interesting out of you're like, most people look at this and never know it's pelican, but very interesting. Very nice shot. And 250 points of light is from Bill Rothenmeyer. And the only note that he left us was this was a backyard Christmas tree. So when I was looking at this, what I thought is if you turn it upside down, you could call it a jellyfish something or other.
Yeah.
Great bunch of images, folks. Now, we do have 8 critique-only images. Now, the critique-onlys are basically, people submitting an image to get a judge's opinion. Greg, if you would, just as you have been doing, give us a critique and also a score. Score gives the people a rough guess of what it might do in a competition or what you think about it. And also these images, although a number of them are ICM, that's not a criteria for submitting a critique only. It can be anything.
Okay.
So this first one in our critique only is Rose.
Yeah, so I like the little pops of color in this one. I love this little we have a central, almost like a flower, a yellow flower, but then we've got these nice little bits of purple and blue kind of surrounding it. To me, this one, it's really dark. I guess it's the way it was processed. So we're getting these kind of grainy, reddish black, at least on this screen, splotches in the bottom center and the top left and top right. So to me, that it's a little, it's hard to appreciate because it's so dark and nothing's really jumping out at me. It's an interesting abstract, but I think these dark splotches for me are, the upper right ones are okay because they're little bits, but the one that's kind of a fingerprint on the bottom center and then the upper left, it's just a little bit too much. So I can't really appreciate these other little bits of color going on here. So I think the square crop works for it. I think that's good, just because there's such fine little details of color. But this is really dark. I think you need to do something a little different with this one. I guess I give it an 8. I think it needs some work.
They see us.
So this is an image I was talking about earlier, taken by the other maker. So it's the same sensor dust. We got the 2 little curls, one at the top, one at the bottom, and then a bunch of spots. So yeah, this one. So they chose to kind of go dead center on this one, and I'm not sure that was the right approach for this one. I think for me, I really love the left half of the image where we have the green streaking merging into some red and then some kind of pulp or tan color in there in the lower left. That's all really nice. But the upper right, if you almost cut the photo at a diagonal, corner to corner, very bright. And it's really not much to appreciate up there. Even when I looked at my computer screen, it was similar. It's just so bright that I'm not getting really detailed. It's basically blown out. So I think for this one, I would just crop it different. And maybe this is where you pull out your rule book and do the rule of thirds and put the blue dot on one of the PowerPoints and crop off significantly, especially that right side, because I don't feel it's adding much to the image other than completing the circle. But I don't think you need that for this image. But this one I think has some potential with some spotting and some cropping. I think you can make it a lot more interesting than it is as presented. So I'd also probably give this one an 8.
The blue eye.
Yeah, so this one, I wasn't quite sure what to make of this with this blue thing in here. So clearly some type of architectural element. It's well exposed. It's interesting to look at. I'm not quite sure exactly what the heck is going on here. I like how the pattern kind of goes off into infinity. You really filled the frame with it. It's very, very sharp. I'm not really quite sure what to make out of the blue thing there. I think with this hump that's kind of in front of me, I feel like it's kind of blocking my view. Like I feel like I want to get over it and see more of the complete part of that blue. It seems like it's cut off unnaturally. So there's a lot that leaves me curious for this. Curious, maybe not as positive, curious way that I like to be. what's interesting, it's well exposed, especially for all the highlights throughout here. I feel like maybe a different angle to get a different perspective on that blue eye might be more interesting. So I'd probably give this one a 9. Technically, it's really well, but the composition maybe a little off.
A Little Slice of Holland.
So this one, interesting with we got the motion of the windmill, going round and round, and then we got the ICM kind of creating this swirl here at the bottom, or maybe it was a zoom technique. Anyway, looks like a bunch of different things going on. I think for me, this one is a little off-putting in that the windmill is leaning to the left, like it's falling over. Maybe all this swiping has knocked it off its foundation. And so it's like being knocked over by this hurricane that's coming through here. So that's kind of a little jarring to me. That's kind of like falling to the left and falling into the frame, kind of away from me. And then we have this strange orange trapezoid here in the lower left. I'm guessing maybe some type of building or structure that was in front of the windmill. To me, that's really distracting. It really kind of intrudes on the base of the windmill, the blades almost hitting it. So I'm not really a fan of that. I like the lower right where it's just this swish of the grasses or trees or whatever that is. But this one, I think it's got me a little worried that this thing's toppling over. So I'd probably give this one a 7. I'm not as enamored by this one.
Liquid Dance.
This one's interesting with this, bright white kind of mask coming through here, offset nicely by the dark colors in the background. So a really true abstract. You can't quite figure out exactly what's going on here. I'd probably tone down the whites at the bottom on the foot, we'll call it, of this white thing coming down there. Looks like it's a little blown out. Maybe that's just on the screen here in the room. But that should be easy to correct that. Just bring back your highlights a little bit. Well, otherwise, it's very interesting. Definitely something keep me kind of guessing as to what's going on here. A wonderful color palette. And so the technique you use to swipe or wiggle swipe or whatever it is, very interesting. But yeah, just watch your highlights a little bit. I'd probably give this one a 10.
Title I have for this is Cartail.
Okay. So interesting here in the room. This looks a lot different than when I looked at my computer last night. It was much darker, more contrasty on my computer. Here in the room, it's looking a lot more bronzish looking, I guess. We're not quite getting the blacks, the true blacks on this TV screen. So I like the composition of just this kind of rear fender of this car and the rear tail light. And we have this kind of white streak in there. So the white streak is kind of in the center of the frame. It's highlighting nothing in particular on the car. So I think if this is my image, I probably would go in with the brush tool in Lightroom and probably add a few more white streaks, maybe to some bits of the taillight to highlight that out, just to kind of show a few more things kind of highlighted by the white streak. Because right now the white is just highlighting a bit of the trunk, which the shape of the highlight is interesting. This little triangle, and then there's another little triangle at the bottom. But it's not really highlighting anything. It's kind of mimicking the shape of the tail light with another triangle. So like I said, composition wise, it's good. I think this is one where I'd go in and edit it a bit more to really kind of create some more pops of light, kind of balance out the image a little bit. But I'd probably give it an 8, I think.
Cloud Falls.
So if you've been listening tonight, you should be able to critique this one Greg style and take some of the things I've talked about tonight. So the two things that kind of bother me on this one is the bottom part of the image is just brown rectangle, which is I guess the ground or whatever. It's very distracting, much like the wave picture we saw earlier. We got these wonderful streaks and colors in the middle of the frame, and I got this very bold element. This time at the bottom, anchoring me, but I don't think you need that. I think you can crop that off. If you hold your finger up in here in the room, crop that off. I don't think you need that brown rectangle. You don't need that. And then the clouds, sky is interesting. I'd take a little bit of it off. I think there's just a little bit too much space above those treetops. I think these little bit of white birch trees or whatever they are, mixed in with the green trees, I think that's really interesting part of your image. Clouds is nice addition, but I don't think it needs to take up, half your frame. So I'd crop in a little bit on this one. But good technique with your swipe. Definitely some nice colors in here, like the saturation you've achieved. But I would just crop in a little tighter to really get rid of the parts of the image that aren't as strong as the others. So I'd probably give this, as it stands, probably an 8, but I think with some cropping, it could go higher than that.
Peru, Plaza de Armas, Lima.
Yeah, so a lot going on with this one. It's like it's like swipe and multiple exposure, and it's a lot to look at. But it's interesting looking, and I think it's having the bold, dark elements here in the foreground really offsets the bright background with the bright building and then the sky. So kind of interesting technique here. You can debate whether having the fountain kind of dead center is the right approach. I think for me, we have the fountain's dead center. I think the background needs to be really well balanced because the foreground is nicely balanced with this chain and the rope and the pillars kind of spread throughout. And of course, we got multiples of those. So that really kind of, frames out the bottom of the image really nicely. But the top, we have 4 ghost buildings. We got one right behind the fountain, 2 on the left, but only one so 2 on the right and only 1 on the left. So I kind of feel like it's a little more weighted to the upper right than the upper left. So I don't know if you can just Photoshop in one more shadow up there, make it an odd numbered 5. I think that might balance it out a little bit better. But overall, it's a very interesting technique. Like I said, a lot of different things going on here. Definitely gives you a lot to look at. I'd probably give this one a 9. I'd say it's just a little off the mark, but otherwise really good.
Well, that is our final image of the evening. And this particular image, this was Greg, when you and I talked, I mentioned Pep Ventosa, where images are shot around the center of the center object.
Oh, okay. Person's
And
movement. I see.
Right. And then they're all blended in Photoshop and such, but
Gotcha.
that's an interesting technique. So after all these images, do you have any final words of wisdom or notes to anybody?
Yeah, I mean, just keep experimenting. Obviously, we saw a good variety tonight of different ways to do these kinds of techniques. And it is very trial and error. Just because you have settings dialed in one time doesn't mean the same settings work next time. It all depends on how fast you twirl or twist or move your camera, how caffeinated or uncaffeinated you are that day. So it's fun. And these images aren't for everyone. I think you picked a good judge for this one. So a lot of people don't appreciate this kind of stuff. I do. And I've done some of it. I think you can find some on my website as well. I haven't actually done some of this for a while, so I have to give it a whirl next time I'm out somewhere. And yeah, that's all I had to say about that. I did want to just make a brief announcement, if I may.
Sure.
So Carl, I think I mentioned this to you when we were on the phone, or maybe I emailed you. So I am taking a trip. It's not a workshop. It's more of a meetup to Old Car City. It's outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So if you like rusted cars and you like, vines covering cars, you have to go to Old Car City. It's a wooded area. It's about 30, 40 minutes outside of Atlanta. He reports to have over 4,000 cars out in the woods, and there's mostly cars from, I'd say, the 40s through the maybe early 70s. There's some modern stuff in there, but not too much. I think he's pretty filled up, so he can't really accommodate minivans or anything more modern. But there's a lot of Studebakers, and there's a couple Bel Airs and some older cars. And so I've been there 3 or 4 times already. And when I was there a couple of years ago, our meetup coordinator was saying, this might be one of the last times he goes because the owner is getting up in age and he's not going to be around forever, and his kids have no interest in maintaining the property after dad dies. So suspect once the dad dies, the sons will bring in the car smashers and the bulldozers and clear it all away. And then the property, you probably can't settle the property because there's probably all kinds of chemicals now in the ground. But what's interesting about this meetup is we're going to do light painting. So we have special access to be there after hours. Normally it's a kind of like 10 to 5 kind of place. So normally it's not open at nighttime. And so there's only a couple photographers I'm aware of that he's given access to this nighttime photography. So he shuts down at 5 o'clock and then reopens an hour later at 6, and we go 6 to about midnight and do light painting. It's a meetup, so it's not necessarily instruction, but there's definitely going to be experienced people there that know what they're doing and would be happy, myself included, happy to show you how to do light painting. So I brought my laptop hoping that a number of you would be here in the room and I could show you some examples of what I've taken in the past, both during the daytime as well as the light painting. So anyone that's interested, happy to share some of that with you tonight and give you the details. If you ever consider to go to Old Car City, I would encourage you to make a trip soon rather than later. And you're never going to find a place that's 4,000 cars in a fence-off lot with security cameras. So you're not going to find some, drug-ridden hobo around the corner that's going to beat you up and take your camera or something like that. It's very safe. We're going in the fall, so we don't have to worry about critters because they'll all be hibernating. That's not to say if you lay on the ground, you won't hear rustling leaves by you and freak you half to death. So you jump up 5 feet. I've done that. But otherwise, it's a really safe place. There's trails all throughout. So it's really safe to walk around. So, if you're like me and you come across 1 or 2 rusty cars and you get all giddy and you take all kinds of fun photos, imagine 4,000 cars. And there's so many. There's some of them are stacked on top of each other. So it's quite the place. So I'd really encourage you to go. And I'm kind of just mentioning it, because I think it's a really cool place. And if you haven't gone and you like that kind of stuff, you should totally go. And 2, we're still looking for a lot of signups. So my friend is running this kind of meetup, and we only have a handful of signups, and he can accommodate up to like a dozen people. I mean, really, we could accommodate 100 people. The place is so massive, but try to keep it manageable. So our lights, we're working nearby each other. Our lights aren't shading each other. So I'm trying to drum up some extra participants for him. And it's dirt cheap. It's like $150 or something like that. It's like nothing. And that gets you in for the daytime and then gets you in at nighttime. And some light, we'll call it light instruction. He said he'll do a little Zoom call ahead of the trip to talk about the location. And then on site, he'll give maybe a brief demo, but not going to be a lot of instruction. But anyway, if you sounds like something you're interested in, see me afterwards. And like I said, I can show you some examples and love to tell you more about it.
And for any people online,
Awesome.
Send me an email and I can email you details.
Well, I was just going to say that I put your notification in our May newsletter. So there's links to the sign up page and some more information. So the stuff that you had sent me for this November event is available in our May newsletter.
Yeah, so it's run by a man named David Crooks. You'll see one of the participants is Don Rosenberger, and he's actually the first one that did this. He was the first one to get this permission to go nighttime photographing there. And so he retired from being a professional photographer a couple years ago. He let Dave take over his mailing list and take over the annual sojourn to Atlanta. But he's making a guest appearance. So I'm looking forward just to talking with Don because he's a friend of mine. But he's a phenomenal photographer. So also another plug, a chance to talk with a phenomenal photographer. We usually do dinner. We usually meet up during the daytime, take photos, then go have dinner while he's closing down, and then we go back for our night shots. So anyway, so Don's a great, and check out his website, donrosenberger.com. Phenomenal. He does a lot of ICM work, and he's top of the mark for ICM as well as light painting. So check out his stuff.
Nice. Well, that's pretty cool. You guys got the ability to go in there and do shooting at night, do light painting and stuff like that.
Yeah, the guy is real particular about it. Apparently, I guess Don, when he first approached him, Don's originally from Virginia, so he was driving down to Atlanta for the weekend and going to do a couple days of daytime shooting, and then he wanted to go in at night. And he told the guys, like, look, I'll pay you whatever you want. Like, if you want $300 for just me to come in here and light paint, I will pay you $300. But the owner's like, no, I'd rather have a dozen people. I'd rather have 30 people pay me $10 or 10 people pay me $30. It's like, but it's the same amount of money. It's the same. You're still sitting at your desk. There's like a little house. You're still sitting at the desk from 6 p.m. to midnight. You're still making $300. Why do you matter as one person or a dozen people? So he's peculiar like that. You meet, I forget what his name is. It's Ed or something like that. You meet him and he's a little odd duck. So that's just how he is. So Don has to do these groups. So even if there's 4 of us, each pay our, $150, which obviously some portion goes to the owner. I guess it's enough that the owner says, okay, I'll sit here for 5 hours reading my book or playing on my phone or whatever he does. I think he has a old school tube TV or something like that. He's got to be in his 80s or something like that. He's a different kind of guy.
Well, it must have been all those weird experiences with drunken hobos.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, you can go to the website, oldcarcity.com, and there's all kinds of photos. There's links to various news outlets that have done videos and interviews with him and the property and stuff like that. So you get a good feel for it. But
yeah, that link's in the in our newsletter PDF. Yeah.
Great.
And also we have I think I mentioned Jeff Johnson. He's a good friend of the club.
Yeah.
Local photographer. I think you know him or have met him.
Yeah. I've been to before.
Because Jeff's been down there to Old Car City a lot of times.
Yeah.
He's got some great images from there. So hopefully a few of the folks in the club can go. You got plenty of time to plan, that's for sure. It's happening in November.
Yeah, November. So we plenty of time out there. Southwest flight directly from Denver to there, and get a rental car for the weekend. It's pretty cheap outing. It's in the middle of nowhere, so the hotels are pretty cheap. $70 a night. Nothing fancy, but whatever, a cheap weekend.
Yep.
And like I said, this is my 5th time there. I thought I wouldn't go back, and I decided, well, I don't know, maybe I'll go back one more time.
Well, 4,000 cars to see. You probably have not hit them all yet, so.
No, I think last time I finally saw all the property. I made it a point. I usually fly in on Thursday night, and I spend all day Friday photographing, Friday night light painting, all day Saturday photographing, and then sometimes a little time Sunday, and then I leave Sunday afternoon. So I did that for 3 years in a row. So the last year especially, I made a point to walk all the trails to see the entire property. But that doesn't mean I photographed all the 4,000 cars. There's still many that I passed up that I said, well, that was interesting, but I think there's some better ones over here that I thought I saw last time.
Sure.
It gives you like a little map. It's rough, but it's a general map, so you can kind of figure out where you are. Like, okay, turn left at the Winnebago, and then right at the ice cream truck, and then and then he has some signs posted on the trees like exit. And he does like some haunted trails through there, so he has various skeletons and weird things kind of throughout the property. He just leaves up all year round, so that's kind of interesting. So yeah, it's an experience for sure.
Yeah. Aren't there some like old ceramic dolls or something in there too?
I don't know that those are a permanent addition. Someone can put them there maybe for a photo shoot, but he doesn't. Since we go in November, he just kind of leaves up all the Halloween stuff. Last time I was there was some college kids filming some type of, I guess, their college thesis project over there. They brought in all kinds of lights. They had a generator for the lights. They had all kinds of props and lighting. They had a makeup artist and the little chairs. It was like a big production. And I was like, are you filming a movie? Like, is Tom Cruise back there? No, it's just a high school production or college production. But they clearly got all the gear from the college AV department. So they were doing some sort of spooky, scary, some guy with a chainsaw I saw at one point, so some sort of gore fest or whatever.
Okay, so it wasn't a Blair Witch remake or anything. It was Texas.
No.
It
was daytime, so it wasn't.
Yeah, it was Georgia Chainsaw Massacre. That's what it was.
That's right.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Greg, for judging for us this evening. Thank you for all your commentary and critiques of our images. I think a lot of people had some very creative things here this evening. So,
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
sure. And if there's nothing else from anybody, I think we will bid everyone a fond farewell, and those in the room get the benefit of checking out the images that Greg has.
There's 3 chats there.
Oh, there's some chat comments?
Yes, there were some praises for you.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks, everyone.
All right. All right. Thank you, everybody in attendance here, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you next month for our program presentation from Kyle. Have a good evening, all.
Good evening, everyone.